Good morning. My name is Troy McAlpin, and I'm the CEO of xMatters. It's been about 6 months now that we've been dealing with the global pandemic, which has really had an impact on all of our lives, how we work, how we learn, how we communicate with one another, how we gather. And so it's unfortunate that we can't get together in person today to celebrate our new product launch. But I do appreciate that you're welcoming me into your home, and I'm grateful to have you join me in mine. At xMatters, we've been pretty fortunate. Our employees and their families have fared pretty well through all of the changes that have happened over the past 6 months. But we're very aware that all of our customers are affected by this, and many have not fared very well. So we continue to stand by our customers to help however we can. This sudden shift in how business gets done, as I said, has had an impact really on all of us. Those of us in the technology field know it well. We've had to rush things to market in order to provide a customer experience so that our customers could interact with our companies in a different way, in a digital way. Those of you directly involved in that know that we're tracking lots of statistics. What's our SLOs and SLIs and SLAs? What's our MTTRs? All of those statistics can be early indicators, but the reality is none of them actually matter. The only thing that really matters is, does your customer love your service so much that they're willing to tell a friend about it? They're willing to say to their friends, I interacted with this mobile service or this digital service from this company, and it was so awesome, you need to try it too. Given that that really is what matters, we're all here to provide this awesome customer experience. We have to look at the two different things that impact that. First of all, we know that we want to bring new features to those customers so that we can exceed their expectations. And secondly, we want to provide an experience that meets their expectations, meaning that the system does what it's supposed to do without interruption and is performant, so that that interaction is exactly what the customer was hoping for. Well, given that, and given that we had to rush services to market over the last 6 months, we know that we have some technical debt to go deal with. We know we have some processes that we're going to have to fix and some things we're going to need to automate in order to keep up with it. Recently, we talked to a broad group of customers in a survey, and we asked them, how much of your time goes towards fixing problems versus developing new stuff? We found that over 70% of the responders said they spent more than 50% dealing with incidents. And importantly, we found that over 25%, over a quarter of the respondents said they were spending more than 80% of their time dealing with incidents. That's obviously not going to work in the long run for providing that great customer experience that we're hoping to. So we started to dig into the root cause of this. What's going on? Why can't we keep up and get more of our time focused on development and less time on toil and fixing problems? And what we found was there was a divide in how people were solving problems that came up. Some were using pager-based systems that had on-call management, but really lacked the automation required for incident response automation and full incident management. Others were using traditional approaches like a service desk and trying to stretch the service desk back into the software development cycle, having people fill out forms in the times of an incident. And what we know nowadays is that just doesn't keep up. One of our customers, a global retailer, was maintaining 2,000 scripts, one for every team. So they all had their own individual processes during the incident, but you can imagine the chaos that would happen when that incident happened to hit multiple services. People were responding in different ways, and the system didn't help them adapt. So we thought, this is a real problem. So if you were trying to help your customers figure out this problem, what would you do? You'd Google it. So that's what we did. We Googled it. We went and started spending time with the team at Google involved in incident response and management and their SRE teams and studying how do they do this? And can we take these practices across all other enterprises? And what we found was, yes, you can. You can automate these processes and responses as long as they're adaptable based on the incident, the impact, and the style or culture of the organization. So that's where we started focusing our time and attention. Fast forward to today, we've invested thousands of hours of interviews, focus groups, mock-ups, shoulder surfs, attempted MVPs, lots of time and attention from our xMatters teams has gone into developing version 1.0 of our adaptive incident management application. The awesome thing about this is that it sits right on top of our core platform and works in concert with what already exists from an incident response automation perspective. So we're really excited to show you what we've created here today. And so today really is a celebration. It's a celebration of lots of time and effort that's gone in. So we've invited many people to come talk with you today, in addition to me. Like real experts are going to come join us from Google and Microsoft and NBN Co, one of our customers in Australia. We have a bit of a product preview. We're going to give you a sneak peek into what our MVP looks like. And we've asked DJ DeCapo, who you heard earlier, drop a funky beat for us at different times during this meeting to kind of keep you entertained. We know long Zooms can be a bit of a drag. And as your conclusion, your reward for hanging out with us today, we've invited a real star, someone who has their own Netflix show, to come and spend some time with you. He's been on Conan, he's been on Ellen, and I promise you this is going to be a fun, entertaining show. I can't give away all the details. I can just tell you that it'll be magical. So hang out with us this morning. I'd like to thank you so much for your time, and I hope that this is a great morning for you. We appreciate that you're spending the time with us today. Thank you.
Thank you for joining, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to our audiences around the world. My name is Ann Deming, and I will be your virtual host for the Adapt launch party. And as Troy mentioned, we have a very exciting afternoon planned for you, and it starts with a panel discussion. The title of that panel is Adapt, a new era for incident management. As you know, incident management plays a very critical role in achieving digital service resilience, delivering an overall positive customer experience, and continued innovation. So in this discussion, you're going to hear how technology organizations can evolve their approach to managing incidents, but still continue to deliver breakthrough innovation. Moderating the panel is xMatters Solution Architect, Stephen Walters. Good afternoon, Stephen. It is over to you.
Thank you, Anne. Thank you for that introduction. It's a great honor for me to actually moderate this panel, especially with the list of guests that we've got here. So I'm going to go straight into introducing you to our panel here today. First of all, let me just introduce James. James is the IT operations management and major incident management practice manager at NBN, one of our customers. He's passionate about empowering users with technology to deliver value and amazing customer experiences. Erin is a program manager on Microsoft Teams, where she looks after integrations for DevOps, customer service, and incident management. Jilam is a customer engineer at Google Cloud, where she leverages technical consulting best practices and sales engineering skills to help enterprises solve complex business challenges and successfully onboard cloud solutions. And finally, last but not least, Tobias. Tobias is the CTO for xMatters. All of you, welcome. Thank you very much for joining us. I think what I'll do at this point is I'm just going to get straight into the first question. And you heard there Troy talk about what hit us in 2020 and how we've had to cope and deal with a very difficult situation, something that's very out of the norm of the normal difficulties we get within the industry today. So my first question is, how has the pandemic affected customer demand for your digital services? I'm thinking of two aspects here. Firstly, have you seen an acceleration in your customers' digital transformation journeys, as a result, or has the pandemic impacted how your customers now budget for digital transformation initiatives? Erin, I'll go to you first on that one.
Yeah, so I work within the Microsoft Teams organization, and in the month of March, as the United States and much of Europe went into lockdowns, we saw almost 3 times increase in our daily active usage of Teams. My team specifically looks at integrations, so all of the apps that are available in the Teams App Store, and we saw even more than 3 times increase in usage of those apps. It means that people aren't just using Teams for calls and chat, they're using apps, especially in the educational and healthcare sphere, to bring information from external systems into their collaboration space, do work on it, and then export or save it back. So we certainly saw customers in all kinds of organizations, but especially in healthcare and education organizations, accelerating that digital transformation. And it wasn't without pain points. We had some slowdowns, we had some issues just handling the volume of usage on the platform. But thankfully, we were able to get our support teams set up with good processes and good incident management practices so that we could deliver top-notch availability to our customers.
And you mentioned there availability. So, I mean, James, NBN, you're a broadband supplier down there in Australia. Very early good morning to you. Availability is certainly something that is certainly a high priority for yourselves. How about yourself in terms of that pandemic effect?
Yeah, thanks, Steve. So yeah, for us, the pandemic has really highlighted the value of NBN to the nation. We are a wholesale provider of broadband services to Australia. So we're a relatively young company. We're only 10 years old. So we were tasked with uplifting the digital capability of Australia. So where we sit today, we have 7.4 million customers. And one of the trends that we've seen, we talk about the demand for digital services, was we saw a massive, almost overnight shift in not only the volume of traffic across our network, but also the time of day that we saw that as people decentralized away from office locations and schools to the home. And that presented challenges almost overnight in terms of, you got this massive jump. So to give you an idea, download traffic for us jumped compared to the pre-pandemic in February. Last week, we were running about 65% above that baseline. So we were about 6.9 terabits a second. Interesting though, that's not bad. But the big metric that we really saw was upload. As video conferencing really took on board and collaboration platforms, we saw upload traffic jump by about 116% to about 0.8 of a terabit per second across the network. So it's really a massive jump. So for us, we've had to respond very quickly. So we worked with what's known as our retail service providers. So they're the ones that actually sell NBN services. And we've given them extra capacity on the network to try free of charge to cope with this increased demand and to enable people to carry on working and learning at home without any degradation of connection. But in addition, we've also seen people coming to the NBN very quickly and say, I need this super fast connection. So we've also seen an uptake in people connecting to the network to actually enable them to work from home effectively. Internally though, I mean, we talk about our customers being the guys at home with an internet connection. We also have a large workforce, and overnight we had to change our way of working, and we saw a massive shift in the need for collaboration and conferencing services. We saw the uptake of the overnight jump. And in the first week or so of this decentralized remote working, we were very closely monitoring the service and ensuring that we took steps to provide stability and a quality service, and very quickly introduced new services and enhancements to existing ones to improve that overall experience, to be so it's more immersive and intuitive when it came to collaborating remotely with a large volume of people.
Yeah, and as you say, it's not just about the capacity, it's about the quality and meeting those expectations of your clients and your customers. And that's not just within the world of broadband and the world within collaborative tools. Tobias, you know, we provide software as a service solution. So there's going to be increased demand on that as more and more people are operating remotely and working on those kinds of needs and requirements. So in terms of the impact on xMatters itself, as well as xMatters clients, there's bound to have been an increase. And I mean, is that something as well as talking about how that's affected our customer demand, is that something that you could quantify in terms of the increased demand of those digital services and explain how those have impacted the teams?
Absolutely. So as you can imagine, our mission in life being to support our customer base through digital transformation, The pandemic has accelerated our customers' plans for making that transition or accelerating down that maturity curve. And as a result, incidents do occur. As we were talking and as James was answering, my broadband internet connection went down. So I'm calling back in from my phone. I promise that wasn't staged, but a great illustration nonetheless. So yes, we've seen our customers have an increase in incidents due to this acceleration. We've also seen our customers doing a lot of system testing as they want to gain confidence in their providers, us among them. And in addition to that, we've seen brand new use cases pop up, such as using our service to keep in touch with folks that are working from home for important notifications, instructions to stay home, etc. So across the board, we've seen a uptick in usage for certain critical dimensions. I would say that we have seen upwards of a 2x increase in usage.
And can I just say that you certainly did well in terms of discovery, triage, adapt and correct your own personal situation there at that moment. Well done, a very quick turnaround on getting back online there.
Thank you.
Jill, I'm going to go to you in terms of from Google as well, in terms of that quantification of things and how you're able to deal with this in the pandemic, your experiences.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the question, Stephen. So, with the pandemic in place, remote work, telemedicine, digital banking, distance learning, they have all become the new normal, right? So during times of COVID-19, digital initiatives have really turned into digital imperatives. And so as we face a period of gradual recovery, we are seeing organizations shift to digital models to sell and to service customers. And this change has really driven many of our customers to modernize their infrastructure rapidly using the cloud to pivot quickly, optimize costs, and also to prepare for the future. In fact, we estimate that by 2021, over 75% of mid-size and large organizations will have adopted either a multi-cloud or a hybrid IT strategy in order to succeed in their digital transformation initiatives. And by 2022, we forecast that public cloud services will be essential for almost 90% of business innovation. So.
And Erin, just to quickly come back to yourself as well, I mean, that impact on your teams, how have you felt that? How has that affected yourself within Microsoft and the Microsoft Teams organization?
We've seen it all across the board. I mean, I can speak personally for the ecosystem team. We look after all of the integrations and the apps within Teams. We've seen increased customer demand for those apps within Teams so they can do their business process workflows that traditionally they might be doing in the office. I know I've spoken a lot about EDU, educational and healthcare needs, certainly a lot of increase in needs for applications there for remote learning and telehealth. But even thinking about employee workflows, no longer can we take our laptop when it's not working and go to an IT help desk and get help. We need a digital way to make those requests and get those requests serviced. So all across the board, we're seeing demand not only for platforms for collaboration and communication, but also applications for those business processes that are outside of just chat and meetings.
This brings me back almost to something that Troy mentioned about this survey that we've done and looking at the information in that. So according to that research that we've announced today, a proportion of technology professionals who report that their ability to build out services is sometimes or always affected by customer impacting issues has increased by almost 10% to 84.3% today, compared to less than a year ago in November 2019. So I mean, in what ways have you helped your customers address challenges with balancing that firefighting, addressing degradations, issues, incidents, and so on, and yet meeting that innovation, needing to deliver that business value? Jill, I mean, I'll go to you because it's interesting for me from a Google perspective to hear about how you've been able to cope with that balancing act.
Yeah, great question. And I feel the result of this research very much ties back to learning and adopting SRE principles within an organization. If you run any kind of internet service, you know that production incidents do happen, right? No matter how much robustness you have engineered in your architecture, no matter how careful your release processes are, eventually the right combination of things do tend to go wrong and your customers can't effectively use your service. If you want to grow your business and keep your current users, the focus really should be on finding that right balance between reliability and feature velocity. The cool part though is that once you do find that balance, you will be poised to increase both your reliability and feature velocity. Now, we are often asked what maintaining the right balance between addressing customer incidents and innovation means. And the answer really is how your organization is setting up their own SRE best practices. So to help with that, Google has a dedicated customer reliability engineering team. And that team's mission is really to help customers to engineer their services for reliability. The CRE team is essentially a subset of Google's own SRE team, and their focus is around three main areas. The first one is around education and training. So provide advice to customers coming from a non-SRE background on how to apply SRE philosophy to their organization, and deliver trainings on topics such as SRE team development or on-call health, monitoring philosophy, and core principles such as SLIs, SLOs, SLAs. The second piece is around shared monitoring. So that team provides implementation guidance to customers with respect to SLO-based symptom-oriented monitoring and shared operational activities such as reliability drills, tests, and joint postmortems. And the last important piece is on planning for critical events. So where the team assists customers with planning for major launches or high traffic, high growth rate periods of time, which is a very common cause of reliability issues and outages.
And of course, a key thing in all of this at the end of the day is the customer, because the customer is the one that is going to be impacted. They're the one who have an expectation as to what has to be met. James, I'm going to go to you for this next question in relation to that. Since the pandemic, have your customers reported any challenges with responding to service interruptions? I mean, what kind of challenges were those, and what did you do as an organization to help address those challenges?
Thanks, Steve. I think one of the key things that's been highlighted with the pandemic, and obviously the change of the way we're working, is the importance of clear communication in incident response. So let's go back to the good old days of February, pre-COVID-19. An incident would start and we would have a conference call, but then we may go and do a desk side chat. You may also go and have a little side online chat. You may be sending some emails in that whole incident investigation. That in the post-COVID world, what we're finding now is, obviously with everyone being separated and working remotely, is those fragmented approaches leave us exposed to inefficiencies and confusion. So one of the things that we've had to do is to look at how we could implement and move to a centralized collaboration platform and bring those elements and those needs for collaboration, be it through chat, voice, video, even file sharing, all into one place. And what we've seen is that improves not only the effectiveness of the collaboration, but also the visibility to our stakeholders, both those that are technically invested, but also customers and end users, in terms of the state of the investigation. And we can provide more effective communications out to them through various integrations of that collaboration platform. So ultimately, what we're looking at is addressing and improving the coordination of the response to the incident, reducing the duplication of the activities, which is a massive win, because you don't want two people doing the same thing when you've got a time critical incident. And because everyone's on the same page, we've got that clearer stakeholder engagement.
And Erin, to bring that same question to yourself and addressing those kinds of challenges, of course, every organization is different in how they meet those. In terms of yourself and how you've met those within Microsoft.
Yeah, I want to second everything that James was saying of challenges that customers are encountering. Microsoft customers have been encountering those same challenges. When there's an incident, it's so common to grab your computers and go to kind of a bridge room or a war room, and a virtual war room, a bridge conference call, just isn't quite the same experience, especially if people are dropping in and out of the audio and the video chat. They might miss some context. So one of the things that we've done to address this as Microsoft is we've built a new capability into Teams meetings, and it's called Meetings Apps. So it's bringing those collaborative business process applications that currently exist in a chat context into the meeting context. And this was really challenging. I mean, in March, we were having trouble with availability and reliability of our platform all the way to it's now September, and we have built and are in the process of launching a completely new capability on our platform. And as Jillian was saying, it really took us getting our incident management buttoned up so that we could be innovative with our new development. We couldn't have done this if our incident management was still taking up all of our time. These meeting apps, I'm very excited to see what they do for incident management, because they'll allow our customers to be taking response on the incident as it's progressing and getting real-time information directly in that context where they're collaborating verbally or visually through a meeting. And I'm also really excited because xMatters is one of our launch partners for this. So xMatters is going to be one of the first apps for meetings and Teams. I think it's going to be really impactful for customers.
I'm looking forward to that one myself. Actually, I mean, there's something as well that you meant, that both yourself and James have mentioned, is that when you were looking at this was very much a challenge, and there were very many risks involved. But those challenges have been faced head on, and what it's been about is about finding new best practices. The best practices we've had before have not now necessarily been as effective. We've had to find new ways of working. So, I mean, what best practices can you share for developing and deploying reliable digital services faster? I'll throw this one to Jillian. I'll throw this one to you first of all, around those kind of best practices that have come about from all of this.
Yeah, thanks, Stephen. So Google is one of the first companies to develop and promote SRE. But this doesn't mean what works well for one company would work for the other, meaning there isn't really a one-size-fits-all approach here. But one thing is for sure. So speed, performance, capacity planning, security, and availability are really the main factors that make a system reliable. And SRE is concerned with all of them. A couple of best practices, in my opinion, to help ensure faster and reliable delivery of digital services would be, the first one is automating whenever possible. So organizations, they should stop the time-consuming and repetitive manual processes that waste time and instead take the time to automate. Automation, it will not only help you in delivering your services quickly, but it will also help you to make sure that your processes are accurate, which consequently makes your underlying systems more reliable. The second best practice is defining your SLOs like an end user. So to manage service the right way, it's important to understand how the service is going to behave. While designing the SLOs, think always from a user's point of view. So consider the factors that will matter most to an end user. For instance, Google started measuring the latency and error rates of Gmail on the client side rather than on the server side. Surprisingly, the error rate and latency count differed quite a lot. Accordingly, the code changes were made and fixes were in place to address this. And we found that the availability rate of Gmail, it increased to 99.9% from 99% in just a few years. And the last important and the very most crucial best practice, in my opinion, is deploying a reliable, is having a robust incident management system in place. And the reason is clear, right? Everyone wants their services to run smoothly all the time, but we live in an imperfect world in which outages do occur, right? And IRM tools, they can be extremely powerful in coordinating the efforts of responding teams in an efficient manner and ensuring that communication flows between both the responders and to those interested in the incident's progress goes on smoothly. It's really the adoption and usage of these SRE best practices that led Google scale the way it is today.
And Tobias, I'll just come to you now, because from an xMatters perspective, we've actually got two sides of the coin that we have to think about here, because we're a service provider to customers and clients. Therefore, we have our own incident management that we have to support. We have to meet our own customers' expectations in what they're delivering. But in the same breath, we have a responsibility to help our customers in terms of their service and the development of their best practices as well. So there are two sides to the coin that we're looking at there.
Right. So I think what I would like to highlight most for that question is our adoption of SLOs and SLIs and the success that we've seen there. So there are a number of aspects of that I think are important. One is that defining SLOs and SLIs with the customer in mind front loads that thinking about what the customer experience is going to be at the end of the day. So getting that thought process going as soon as possible in the development cycle is key. Also important to do upfront is get that negotiated between product owners and engineering teams. This is not a negotiation that you want to have in the midst of an important incident. You want to have that agreed upon in advance so that automatically you're choosing the right balance between reliability and innovation. I also would say that building the instrumentation for tracking SLOs and SLIs is valuable in and of itself. And finally, when you are approaching a threshold of a service level indicator or a service level objective, just wiring that directly into an incident management process is key to minimize the customer impact of any sort of threshold, accession, or outage, impending outage. So getting ahead of that is extremely important.
And I think something else as well to point out, and something that comes out from the survey, is that this is not just an increased pressure on our technology and on our platforms and on our services and on our customers, but also on our teams and how we operate. So in April 2020, the xMatters impact of COVID-19 on digital transformation, that survey found that 49.7% of respondents are currently working increased hours and are experiencing a diminished work-life balance. You know, you've got people who are operating their work at home and their home at work, and that affects that work-life balance. I'm interested to understand how each of you, in terms of your organizations, how have you addressed that situation, that people side of things, and addressed burnout, other leadership challenges, the hurdles that have affected your teams during the pandemic? James, I'll go to you first.
Thanks, Steve. Yeah, so before COVID-19, NBN had a well-established, flexible and remote working policy to enable our employees to effectively manage their work-life balance. We understood that's an important aspect of everyone's life, having that home life as well. As COVID's emerged and we've changed our way of working, we've reiterated the importance of having that balance, particularly now you're going to be living and working in the same place. But also, in addition to that, providing training on how to better manage your time, how good practices for working at home. And for those, we do place a real big value in having good mental health. And we've made our employees aware of services available to them that NBN provides through third parties, which we call an employee assistance service. And that offers mental health support through counsellors, psychologists, and various other services in order to ensure that our employees and teammates ultimately are getting the best support we can give them. In addition to that, though, within our local IT teams, we've worked to establish some good practices to try and minimize the burnout and to ensure that we have a good work-life balance. And things like, we all see it that when you're working remotely, you can get a lot of meeting invites. Everyone wants to meet to have a discussion. We've introduced the concept of quiet hours. So within our organizational-wide meeting blackout times, that's times for individual work, individual contributors, even go away, have some lunch, just there is no meetings, go and have a walk, get outside. We've also, as leaders, making sure that we are regularly checking in with our teammates and our colleagues to make sure that they are doing okay. Are we managing the workload appropriately with them? We are really, really, really emphasizing the importance and the availability of flexible working, because not only are we working from home, but we have situations where our kids are working from home. They're learning, they're homeschooling, and it may not be possible to do a 9 till 5 day. It may be a case of work a bit in the morning, work a bit in the evening, and be the primary educator for the kids at home. NBN fully supports that, and we've made that aware across the organization that people are working disparate hours. But with that, we've also established the good practices that people are working disparate hours. So they're going to be emailing at various times of the day that might not be your core working hours. When you're not working, close your laptop, your email can wait. You're not expected to respond when you get the message. If you're not on what you term your working time, you're not expected to respond. It's not an expectation. It's people are working differently now, and you need to make sure that you respond when it's your work time. We don't want that to bleed into your personal time.
Yeah, and that is an important aspect, because obviously that affects morale, that affects productivity, but it's just in terms of the people are an important part of any organization, because they will help to bring it to the forefront. Erin, I'm sure you'll agree on that, and I'd be interested to hear from your side as well, the kind of things that you've been employing to help the people within your teams.
Sure. James has mentioned a lot of programs and mindsets and leadership examples that I've also seen exemplified at Microsoft. A couple of things that have also happened within our organization are being strategic with notifications so that people don't feel the pressure to respond when they get a message. The annoying thing about these mobile devices that we all have is that they are designed, they are engineered to get our attention and make us want to respond right in that moment. And there's so many things that we can do to help distance ourselves from that expectation, both from others and for ourselves. Two practices that we've set within our organization is setting quiet hours or do not disturb hours for Teams and Outlook messages, so that if an email or a message does come through while we are not in working hours, we're not even distracted by it in the first place. And another practice that we've done is delaying send of messages if we're sending them during non-standard working hours, so that we are not setting this precedent or this expectation that just because I'm online at 11:30 at night, someone else needs to be online. I think, especially as myself, I'm an individual contributor, if my manager or skip level manager sends me a message late at night, it's hard for me to ignore that. And so using those delay features so that leaders are not setting an example of working late at night or sending emails outside of working hours. So I think those are two practices that we've enabled ourselves.
And it was an interesting aspect there that you mentioned about those mobile devices that ping on and off and so on. And with everything else and with social media, that these are busy impacts on our lives anyway. So, I mean, Gillian, from your perspective, what's going on within Google, please?
Yeah, I totally second James's and Erin's comments here. We at Google are constantly trying to reduce the gap between in-person and virtual office experiences. One approach that we have taken to address burnout, which I really like, is to come up with creative ways to help us stay connected to our professional office network, which really means that even if we are not in the office together, there are plenty of ways for us to build community, connect, and celebrate virtually. For example, we have something called as the virtual coffee break or the virtual ice cream social, where members essentially pick their favorite beverage or dessert and just enjoy together on Hangout. Or a virtual bake-off, right? Where team members, they cook or bake their favorite treat or make something new for the first time. Everyone gathers on Hangout and presents their creation, and then folks enjoy their delicacies together. Also, very recently, as a team bonding activity, we had a virtual movie meet where we watched a movie together on Netflix party. That was quite fun.
I like the idea of actually combining the two, eating while watching a movie. That sounds great to me. That sounds fantastic. Tobias, I mean, I want to come on to xMatters because as somebody who works for xMatters and has been here, something I've really enjoyed has been the culture that's operated here and the way that things have worked here. Working within xMatters, it's not so much about working with a company. It's almost, well, it is. It's an extended family. It's like being part of a family, and you feel that care, you feel that attention, and everything that's been mentioned within there. But I mean, from your perspective, let's hear what you have to say about, you know, you're the CTO in terms of what's gone on within xMatters and the approaches that you've seen and how that's operated.
Sure. So at xMatters, as you can imagine, we're very well equipped to measure the response time of folks to incidents and issues. And we were keeping a close eye on this as COVID ramped up. And we saw that the response time amongst our engineers was very fast, even faster than normal, but also very fast for issues and incidents that maybe could have waited till the next day to address. So that was, of course, a concern to us, and we dug into that a bit. And talking to various engineers, yes, part of the reason was because we were in quarantine and there's not much else to do. But in addition to that, it was mentioned several times that really engineers felt a sense of purpose in responding to these issues very quickly, supporting our customers. And for those engineers, it really was their way of helping out during the pandemic. So I found that very inspiring to hear, and also suggested closing the laptop from time to time.
Yeah, I mean, I know that you do have this work-life balance, and you have those situations where, you know, you're able to work late in the evening and flexible in terms of what you're doing in the morning. But when you're feeling valued as an employee and you have that flexibility and you have that capability to work, you do feel that greater sense of purpose, exactly as you say, and you're able to interact with everybody really in a much easier way. And that brings me onto something that's close to my heart, which is culture. Culture is a significant part of any organization in how it operates. You know, it's one of the cornerstones of any kind of DevOps implementation and how you do those kinds of things. You know, and culture is something that has been massively impacted by everything that's gone on and the work that's being done. And culture is probably one of the hardest things to change, and yet when it does change, it provides the greatest successes. I'm just interested in are you seeing rapid change in culture creating more demand for automation? In terms of technology and process automation, are you seeing a shift in employees being able to work on more high value tasks? So the culture improves actually the way that you're working. James, let's go to you on that one. I'm going to throw the ball straight at you on that one.
Thanks, Steve. Yeah, so yeah, there's definitely been a change in culture of we're moving away in recent times from we always did it this way. And it's now, I think there's a real shift to, okay, well, let's look at how we can improve and disrupt this status quo to provide better value, but also to improve overall customer experience. That's been enabled, though, by improvements in workflow, automation, and AI technologies. That's enabling us within NBN to identify those high volume, low value tasks, the stuff that just keeps the wheels turning. And we take those tasks and we are reviewing them with the task owner and the process owners and identifying, okay, well, let's look at this process. Can we automate it fully? does it need a human interaction? Can we train, do some machine learning and train some decision logic based on the inputs and the outputs of that task and complete it end to end? Great. If we can, we do it. Then it's a case of, well, we can automate modules of it, elements of it. And then a great example is something breaks, we automatically go and gather the impact. What's the overall impact on the service? What's the business processes impact? Who's impacted? Where's impacted? Whereas previously, and we can go back even as 6 months, that would be a manual task. That's now fully automated, presents to the incident responder and goes, but wait, I can tell you what's broken, but I can tell you why I think it's actually broken based on the changes, the event statuses, and provide not only this is why I think is broken, but hey, do you want to try these in order to fix it? Which do you want? Choose, and it's almost the choose your own adventure approach in terms of, well, do we want to roll back a change? Do we want to reboot a server? Do we want to take a server out of service? So for us, that's obviously really expedited the experience in instant response, but also things like request fulfillment. People who would have been waiting 3-4 days for a request to be fulfilled are waiting 3-4 minutes. So massive uplift in customer experience. So what that really does though, great customer experience, but it frees up our employees to focus on activities that add additional value, improve, really drive the value and improve the overall customer experience instead of just fixing those faults and processing those repeatable requests.
So I mean, something that I've got from this, hearing all of you speak, is that despite the fact that we've been going through this very difficult time and a very challenging time, it's actually been an opportunity. It's been an opportunity for us to actually look at new elements, new things, new ways of working, to adapt and change our culture, to introduce new ways of automation and better ways of automation, to bring out new ways of collaborating and new ways of communication. And really for me, that helps to bring all of that back to the theme of what this panel discussion is about, that one word, adapt. And it's about adaptability and how we've all been able to adapt to what we need. And it's about adapting to the demands from customers, the demands from our environment, and everything that we need to do to help in that fulfillment. I mean, I don't know if anybody else has any closing statements that they want to make at that point, but I mean, from my perspective, fantastic. Thank you very much, all of you. It's been great to hear from all of you. And please, let's do this again sometime. This has been absolutely fantastic. I've really enjoyed it. I want to thank each and every one of you for joining us for this panel session. I've certainly enjoyed it. It's been great interaction. I hope everybody else out there in the world who's been listening to this has enjoyed that as well. And with that, Anne, I am going to throw that ball that James has passed back to me and throw it straight back over to you.
It is caught. Thank you. I will echo those comments from Stephen. Thank you to everybody. Your insight, your enthusiasm. It was an absolute pleasure to sit here listening to the discussion. And what's interesting is I kept thinking, as challenges and hurdles that were brought up that we've all faced unexpectedly in 2020, as they came up, the follow-up comment from each and every one of you was then a mention of innovation, of a product strength that each of you now have that you're delivering to your customers that's been born out of necessity. And it's a wonderful thing to celebrate, because what we just heard was you were protecting that positive customer experience and keeping digital service resilience and innovation front and center. So the final aside is that it's also impressive how very thoughtful each and every one of you were about discussing that work-life balance, about how your companies are focused on communication and staying connected. And from what we heard, from the top on down. Jill, the only thing that terrifies me is the bake-off that you mentioned. Please have my back, Tobias, Stephen. If anybody suggests that, I cannot go into the kitchen and bake anything, so let's not use that. But I'd love to be invited to one at Google. That sounds spectacular. I just can't do it myself. So a very inspirational panel. Thank you to everybody. And it's also, that dialogue is the perfect way to set the stage for our next presenter. So I would like to introduce Nathan Talbot. Nathan is an xMatters solution architect, and he's going to show you how the product works in action. So Nathan, welcome. Why don't you chime in with a quick hello so we can check your audio?
Hello, can everyone hear me okay?
I can indeed. We are ready and excited for the demo. The floor is yours.
Perfect. I am excited too. So yes, thank you everybody for joining us today. Honestly, this has been the highlight of my week that I've been looking forward to, and we're already at Tuesday, so it can only be better from here. Let's start off our demo by first of all casting our minds back a few years. Gone are the days where developers are just writing code. It's becoming increasingly more common for coders to be on call, and in many cases actually need to coordinate incident response. And if the Google SRE model has taught us anything, it's that nobody likes doing repetitive tasks, especially not at 2 a.m. Forrester and Gartner have both found that some 65 to 70% of incidents happen because of change activity. So it's even more frustrating if you or your colleagues are being unnecessarily woken up by another team's work. So how do you work smarter when these unfortunate events occur? How do you ensure that your on-call teams who are being asked to do more effectively also wear the hat of an incident commander, and doing all of this whilst minimizing customer impact? Well, let's take a look, shall we, and actually get into this. So first of all, I'm going to start off here in the xMatters mobile app with an alert that could be waking us up because we're on call for a particular service. Now, chances are you've got something like Dynatrace, App Dynamics, or as we see here, Stackdriver telling you that something is wrong. And here, xMatters will bring you that signal straight to your device, and it's woken you up, in this case, with a notification within the app. So that's a good start, at least for your instant response. So what's the first thing that you typically do when something goes wrong? You're probably wondering what's changed, what may have caused this Stackdriver alert. Perhaps somebody pushed a new bit of code. Is another service unavailable? Has there been a change on a config recently? In many cases, you're probably going to have to go to a number of different systems to gather all of this telemetry. Except with xMatters, you can have all of those steps happen before the notification even hits your device. So here, we've got the signal from Stackdriver and then a series of enrichment data. So things like our recent code repo commits, recent builds, other system statuses, and even change requests that have recently happened. So all of this situational context can be configured to suit the integration or workflow relevant to this impacted service. Now, armed with this context, you've got a pretty good idea if this alert is something you need to take action on. And those of you that use xMatters today, you're probably already familiar with the xMatters response options on notifications and the ability to customize them beyond a simple accept or escalate responses. And you're probably thinking, well, this is all well and good, Nathan, but where's this new incident management feature that we're all here to see today? Well, it's right here. You can see here that we've got a response labeled create incident. Now, you might be an engineer on call, so you're just triaging these signals ahead of handing them off to another team to manage the incident, or you might be an SRE tasked with seeing this service outage through to resolution. You may now have a number of actions that you need to do, such as engaging various resolvers to help on this incident, opening up some form of collaboration space for everybody to work together, and perhaps more importantly, actually getting that incident log somewhere to track all of this activity. So there's a lot to do, especially at 2 o'clock in the morning. Thankfully, this is where the xMatters Flow Designer function can help you. So behind the scenes, as I'm talking, our visual workflow builder is automating the manual processes and moving this incident forwards. So this could be anything from creating channels in your chat tools through to opening conference bridges for your responders and stakeholders. So now that we've kicked things off and perhaps got our laptop out, I've had a notification here into the Sev1 channel in Slack, giving me confirmation that the incident has been created. And so we can click through into xMatters and see our newly created incident in this brand new incident tabs console that you'll see on the page here. So what's this showing me? Well, firstly, that signal data from Stackdriver that woke us up, it's all here in the incident summary and the description. And we can even edit that to make it more user-friendly. So let's take that title out and just say API Gateway Issue, and we'll put that into our description field as well, so we have all of the detail there. Now, next, based on the data that came through from Stackdriver and the configuration of my workflow, I can see that there's already a few resolver groups engaged, meaning xMatters on-call schedules have been automatically initiated, notifying the relevant on-call people, and where necessary, escalating through the group. Again, that's a typically very manual process that's been automated in this case, saving you the headache of maybe pulling up on-call spreadsheets or manually calling through a list of resolvers. Now, it doesn't look like we've got any responses just yet from anybody in that group, but that's not a worry, because if we don't get any responses straight away, we've got the ability to re-notify any of those groups as well. So we'll make sure that we get them out of bed. Now, over on the right-hand side of the screen, xMatters has been busy working with various chat tools. It may be that there's some cultural tool differences across the organization, and your business stakeholders are maybe potentially impacted by this, and they could be using Microsoft Teams, but your technical resolvers could be using Slack. So what's helpful here is the information that we're posting to each of these applications can be different. So if we click through to the Microsoft Teams channel, you can see here, when it refreshes, you've got to love a fast connection. You can see here that it's got that key incident detail, but it's also got the conference bridge details posted in there if somebody does want to manually connect through. And for our technical resolvers, they've got a dedicated channel in Slack that we'll see in a few minutes, which is referenced against the incident number. So a couple of different tools there, all connected automatically. So these new incident management features from xMatters, which are accessed in that new incident console and powered by the xMatters Visual Builder Flow Designer, solve the challenges of responding to service interruptions across different teams, different cultures, and different systems. So now that we've got a few different teams engaged, let's just refresh that and check if we've actually managed to wake anybody up. We can hopefully start progressing through this incident. So I'm actually going to set this incident to being in progress, and I can now add a note on there to say teams have been notified. And that note will actually get added to our incident timeline down here at the bottom. And this is filterable and searchable as well. So that allows me to pull up the audits on resolver engagements, status and severity changes, and any notes that are manually added through this notes section as well. And that's going to be really handy later on when we're producing the post-incident report, which will help your teams improve their overall incident response by learning from the actions on this incident. So now let's hop into Slack and just see if there's been any activity in our dedicated incident channel. Oh, great news, we can see that Stephen has been engaged into this incident. So he is awake, he just hasn't responded to our notifications. So we'll let him off this time because he did such a great job on the panel just there. But you can see that while Stephen has been putting some notes in there, he's also suggesting that we actually pull in our applications team as well, because it looks like the last change actually had some configs that they may have caused. Now, if you're familiar with xMatters, you may know that we've got functionality through bots from Microsoft Teams and Slack that will allow us to look up different groups within xMatters. So we don't have to leave the application that we're in to do things like seeing who's on call or inviting and engaging those people into that particular incident space. But the nice thing with the new incident console is when you need to scale your instance up or scale them down, you can also do that directly from this console here. So what I'm going to do is find that applications group, add them into the incident, and they'll now start to receive notifications, just like Stephen has done, inviting them into this incident and notifying them per their on-call schedules and the escalations associated with them. So what are they receiving? Well, if we again bring up my device on the screen here, you can see I've had a text message and an app notification. So this is a notification that will be going out to our applications team resolvers, giving them a quick flavor. Let's just refresh that of the notification and the incident, so they can see the key information here about this incident, just like we've seen in the incident console. We've got the status there, the current severity, and we can respond to that notification, like so. And that incident console will then be updated in real time. So the incident commander gets a positive response back from the team and also has that action updated into the console as well. Now, because this particular incident is affecting multiple services, it might be that we actually want to increase the severity of this incident. So this is where we can be adaptive and better manage the incident as more details are becoming known. So if we set the severity up to critical and just say multiple services impacted, again, that all gets logged into the incident timeline, and that can now kick off any additional processes that are relevant to a critical based incident. So now let's fast forward and imagine that our teams have been hard at work and hopefully they've found a fix. Great, Stephen's role packed the last deploy. He's restarted the app, it should be good to go. So we can now say that this particular incident is mitigated. And what we mean by that is we believe this overall outage is over, but the resolvers are still engaged. So they're still actively working on this incident, perhaps monitoring the situation. And this is where we can now actually change things like the start and end time of the outage. So maybe we determined that the overall outage actually started a couple of minutes before we created the incident. So we can adjust the start time and the end time, i.e. when Stephen put that fix into place, and just say, Stephen Walters deployed a fix, hit update, and again, all of that activity gets logged for us. Now at this point, we'll probably spend a few minutes just monitoring the service, making sure that it's stable, and we may then get another nod from our resolvers to say that the service is looking good. So we can now get to the happy part of any incident and set that to resolve. Again, we've got the ability to tweak those times if we need to, and put a comment in there like so. And this is where the cool actions start to happen. This is where that hard work at the end of an incident, the last thing that you want to be doing at 2:30 in the morning, actually comes into play. xMatters is going to automate all of the wrap-up steps that need to happen when it comes to analyzing an incident. So first of all, we get our overall time to detect. So we can accurately help you log the time the outage actually occurred to being logged within xMatters. The overall time to acknowledge, tracking how long it took for your new incident to be picked up and put to the in progress state. Impact duration, so classifying the actual length of the outage impact to the business, and the time to resolve, the length of time to fully close out the incident from its beginning. And since our incidents live in different statuses, and in today's case, different severities, you'll even be shown how long your incident spent in each status. So combine that with reports like our group performance report, xMatters helps you learn more about your incident response. So by leveraging the joint power of xMatters' Flow Designer, on-call scheduling, and the new incident management, you can enable your teams to automate the stuff that can be automated, empower them to manage incidents more effectively by providing them a guided path from detection to resolution, and ensure vital learnings are captured post-incident. And ultimately, this will then lead to a more resilient service and a better experience for your customers and end users. Now, there's lots more ways that this new functionality, which is available on all tiers of our product, can help your teams automate incident response, such as connecting to your existing incident platforms, for example. Doing so can provide your smaller teams with a mechanism to manage incidents locally without needing to engage your full ITSM product suite. So if you're interested in learning more or seeing a more detailed demo, or just getting your hands on all of these groovy features, go to the xmatters.com site or speak to your account manager. And for now, that's all from me. I'll pass back over to Anne.
And thank you to everybody from our audience. All of us at xMatters, we are thrilled that you were able to celebrate today's Adapt launch party with us. And don't forget, for more information, maybe you want to request a demo, maybe you want to try the product, maybe you want to grab one of our recent white papers, maybe one on closing the customer experience gap or understanding the importance of adaptive approach to incident management. All of that and more is available at xmatters.com/adaptive. We also have a whole bunch of product demo webinars, and what you're seeing on the screen is just through September. So maybe you want to bring a friend, maybe you want to revisit. You'll notice the purple highlighted September 23rd Adaptive Incident Management demo as well, but there are ones throughout the month that we would welcome you to join us on. And now we have a few things to thank. First of all, for our customers who maybe you know xMatters and you're joining us on this journey as you did today. Some of these names on the screen might seem familiar to you. They're the group of people who've been involved in bringing incident management to life and part of this launch. So hopefully you've had the pleasure of interacting with them, because it is our greatest joy to bring value to you as a customer. And if you're newer to maybe just learning about xMatters and you'd like to learn more, don't forget about that link, xmatters.com/adaptive, and all of those wonderful and workshops that we have coming up through September and beyond.